studying your last two. I swim with tea when they turned in. The staring out to mute and can lend a pole that some kid died.
This slide introduces an important idea in compensation planning. The optimal salary and dividend strategy often changes as an owner-manager approaches retirement. Many compensation decisions that make perfect sense at age 30 or 40 may no longer be the best choices at age 60 or 65. The reason is simple. The client's objectives change. At the left side of the timeline, we see the younger owner-manager. During these years, the focus is often on building a financial foundation. Mortgage obligations may be significant. Children may still be living at home. RRSP contribution room is valuable. CPP benefits are still being accumulated. Retirement may be decades away. In this phase of life, salary often plays a very important role because it helps support many of these objectives. As we move through the timeline, the owner-manager continues building wealth. CPP entitlements increase. RRSP assets grow. Corporate investments accumulate. Personal net worth expands. Over time, the financial picture begins to change. Now look at the right side of the slide. The owner-manager is approaching retirement, typically between ages 60 and 65. The priorities are different. The mortgage may already be paid off. Children may be financially independent. Significant RRSP assets may already exist. Corporate investments and retained earnings may have grown substantially. And perhaps most importantly, a meaningful CPP entitlement has already been built over many years of contributions. This naturally leads to the question shown in the thought bubble. Do I still need more salary? This is one of the most important questions advisors should ask clients in this age group. The planning process shown at the bottom of the slide illustrates the typical progression. Early in a career, the focus is on growth. Then attention shifts toward building CPP benefits and RRSP contribution room. After that comes wealth accumulation through investments and business growth. Finally, as retirement approaches, it becomes appropriate to reevaluate the compensation strategy itself. The answer that was correct 20 years ago may not be the answer that is correct today. This does not mean salary automatically becomes inappropriate. Rather, it means that compensation planning should evolve as the client's circumstances evolve. The key lesson from this slide is simple. Age matters. Life stage matters. And as retirement approaches, the balance between salary and dividends should be reviewed carefully rather than simply continuing the same strategy that was used during earlier years. What worked best during the wealth-building phase may not be what works best during the retirement transition phase. Good compensation planning adapts to the client's changing goals and changing financial reality. This slide explores one of the most important questions for owner-managers who are approaching retirement. Is making additional CPP contributions still worthwhile? The answer is often very different at age 62 than it was at age 35. Let's begin on the left side of the slide. During the earlier stages of a career, salary often provides significant long-term value. When an owner-manager receives salary, CPP contributions are made automatically. Those contributions help build future CPP benefits that may eventually provide retirement income for decades. At this stage of life, retirement is still many years away, and there is plenty of time for those contributions to support future financial security. For younger owner-managers, CPP participation often represents an important part of the wealth-building process. That is why the green checkmark appears on the left side of the slide. The long-term value of CPP contributions is often substantial during these years. Now let's move to the right side of the slide. The situation begins to change as the owner-manager reaches age 60 to 65. By this point, many individuals have already accumulated a significant CPP entitlement through years of contributions. They may also have RRSP accounts, corporate investments, retained earnings, pensions, rental income, or other retirement assets. The financial foundation has often already been built. This leads us to the question shown in the center of the slide. Will additional CPP contributions meaningfully improve retirement income? For many owner-managers in this age range, the answer becomes less clear. Notice the sequence shown on the right side. Additional salary creates additional CPP contributions. Those additional contributions may increase future CPP benefits. However, because retirement is now much closer, the increase in future benefits may be relatively small compared to the cost of making those contributions. In other words, each additional dollar contributed may provide a smaller incremental benefit than it would have earlier in life. This does not mean CPP suddenly becomes a bad idea. Rather, it means the cost-benefit analysis changes. The advisor must now evaluate whether additional CPP contributions are still providing meaningful value relative to the client's broader retirement resources. The key lesson from this slide is simple. The value of CPP contributions is not the same at every stage of life. For younger owner-managers, CPP often plays an important role in building retirement security. For owner-managers approaching retirement, the value of additional CPP contributions may begin to decline as existing retirement assets and accumulated CPP entitlements become more significant. This is why compensation planning should always be tied to the client's age, retirement timeline, and overall financial picture. The closer a client gets to retirement, the more important it becomes to ask whether additional CPP contributions are still creating meaningful value. This slide brings us to the practical conclusion of the discussion. For many owner-managers between the ages of 60 and 65, dividends often become more attractive than salary. Notice that I said often, not always. The decision must still be based on the client's overall retirement plan. But this age range is where the analysis frequently begins to shift. Let's start with the left side of the slide. Salary still provides certain benefits. However, many of the advantages that made salary highly valuable earlier in life may now be less important. Additional CPP contributions are still required when salary is paid. Payroll administration continues, and the client may already have enough earned income history, RRSP assets, and retirement resources to meet their financial goals. As a result, the incremental benefit of additional salary may be smaller than it was years ago. Now look at the right side of the slide. This is where dividends begin to stand out. Dividends do not create CPP contributions. They generally involve simpler administration. They can provide cash flow to support retirement spending needs. And perhaps most importantly, they allow the owner-manager to begin accessing wealth that has accumulated inside the corporation over many years. For many business owners approaching retirement, this accumulated corporate wealth becomes one of the primary sources of retirement income. That is why the benefit meter on the dividend side is shown higher than the salary side. The compensation strategy is no longer focused on building future retirement assets. Instead, it is increasingly focused on efficiently using the assets that have already been built. At the center of the slide, we see an advisor helping a client evaluate compensation options. Notice the balance scale. The scale does not suggest that dividends are always superior. Rather, it illustrates that as retirement approaches, the balance often begins to tilt toward dividends because the planning objectives have changed. The questions shown at the bottom of the slide help explain why. What is the client's age and retirement timeline? How much CPP entitlement has already been accumulated? What are RRSPs? Investment and retirement assets already exist? How much retained earnings are available inside the corporation? What other retirement income sources are available? And most importantly, what lifestyle goals does the client want to achieve during retirement? The answers to these questions determine whether additional salary still creates meaningful value. For many owner-managers in this age range, the answer is increasingly no. That is why dividends often become the preferred compensation tool. They provide retirement cash flow without creating additional CPP obligations and allow the owner-manager to access corporate wealth that has already been accumulated. The key takeaway is simple. As retirement approaches, compensation planning shifts from wealth accumulation to wealth distribution. And for many owner-managers age 60 to 65, dividends often become the more attractive option because they align more closely with that new objective. However, the final decision should always be based on the client's complete retirement strategy and overall financial picture.